Our headline story, the new age of advertising. Now, many sectors reeled and lost because of the lockdown of global commerce induced by the coronavirus, medical, mining, and more. Today, we're focusing on the advertising subsector of the media industry. How did it fare during the lockdown? How is the sector dealing with today's consumer attention span? Where is advertising going after the pandemic? We'll get into all of this with our guests. I'm Tolulope Adeleru-Balogun. Welcome. This is Business Edge. A PwC report projected Nigeria's total advertising revenue to be $483 million. That's about 193 billion naira in 2020, with the internet accounting for 20.5% of the total. The study revealed that although television advertisements will remain the ad leader in Nigeria by 2023, internet advertisements will outperform TV ad in terms of net additions. That's something you need to hold on to for the show. Because people stayed at home worldwide in response to the lockdown, they had more time to binge on streaming services, browse social media, and engage in several other online activities, which exposed them to more online marketing. The COVID-19 pandemic triggered a lockdown in some of the major economic hubs in the country and across the world. However, blue-chip companies still splurged heavily on advertising and marketing campaigns as they jostled to adjust to the new normal. So beyond the lockdown, what is the future of advertising? Joining me is the Executive Director, Media Investment for Media Reach OMD, Yinka Adebayo. Yinka, welcome to Business Edge. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Tolu. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Nice to be here.
So first, let me congratulate Media Reach for their award as the Media Agency of the Year on the Africa level at the Picture Africa Regional Awards. And definitely winning an award like that in the year the world has just had really talks to the capabilities of Media Reach. So let's talk about the year that was. How did the advertising sector manage, particularly across the continent during the lockdown, during the height of the coronavirus pandemic?
Wow, well, I think thank you so much, Tolu, for having me, and thanks so much for that congratulation. Interestingly, it's been a repeated victory, so we are glad to still maintain that and to keep the flag flying. Yeah, I dare say the year that gone past us, 2020, is one year that most people would like to almost like forget easily. But interestingly, it's been one of the most interesting years, I must say. Interesting because yes, the pandemic came. It was really a shocker for everybody. It was indeed a crisis situation. But crisis, like they say, will always remain the best platform for a good manager to excel. So I think for the advertising world too, though it offered us an opportunity that many advertising agencies as well as even brand custodians failed to take advantage of. But yeah, it came. Unfortunately too, it was one crisis that nobody prepared for. Yeah. So we didn't see it coming. So there was no manual or a template that you need to go to and use to kind of like tutor you on how to navigate. So it happened or not. But I think about the interesting part of it is that it forced many of us back to the drawing board to re-strategize. And for me, it's simple. It depends on how well you see the cup. Is either you see it as half full or half empty. How you see it ultimately determine how you travel. For some people, the kind of billings or in terms of profit they've never made before they made it in that year. So while some people are crying, some are actually smiling their way to the bank.
And it's interesting you mentioned that because I know for some of the companies, especially in the fast-moving consumable goods industry, 2020 was a bumper year for some of them, even those in like the sanitation, where we had a lot of people everywhere you're going, in your house, in your car, in your bag, there is sanitizer. So they actually ended up doing more advertising because that was a time for them. So when we look at companies like that, in terms of stepping up advertising, what were they able to do? They took advantage of the crisis that happened and then stepped up. But beyond that, how did that happen for them?
Well, interestingly, it's just a knee-jerk reaction. And that's expected because when people are faced with a choker, it's either you probably just want to hands up and say, hey, let me leave it, or you want to take it up to say, hey, what is the world telling me here? What is the opportunity? There's always an opportunity in everything. It just depends on how you see it. And like I said, how you see it will determine on how you travel. Interestingly, there are some product launches that happen during the pandemic. There are some brands that, rather than take their leg off the pedal, that is even when they advertise the most. And the reason is simple. The eyeballs you've been looking for, that you spend millions to get, that now at home, waiting to be tapped.
With nothing to do.
And here you are staying up. So like one of the advice that we give to our own clients is the fact that during crisis period is not when you take your leg off the pedal. is when you actually put your leg on it, because the 1 naira you give me when I'm in pain is more valuable and important to me than the 1 million you give me when I'm rich.
I'm interested in that advice. You said you give that advice to some of your clients, but did you have clients who said, no, this is just such an unknown situation that I'd just rather pause what I'm doing, who maybe did not take the advice you gave them?
Well, interestingly, yes, some of them felt about, I think quite a substantial number of them actually took to that advice. I said, okay, fine, because you see, in advertising, you cannot afford to be off the scene.
Yeah.
People forget you easily. So there's a minimum threshold that you need to maintain what we call top of mind awareness. If you are not there, people move on. People don't hold loyalty to any brand. You must always be in their mix. And how you do it is that there's a minimum threshold that you need. You might not be oscillating at the high level that you used to do, but that minimum threshold needs to be there so that you keep on being in the minds of the people, because share of voice ultimately determines your share of their pocket. So that's very important. So you need to be in that mix. And for some of our clients, we actually kept them on the table. And there are so many needs.
You can give us an example.
Yeah, there are so many needs that of the consumer that you need to address. Take, for instance, one of the key clients of ours, the Tolerant Group, took that advice, and they went and to a large extent, I think they brought a whole lot of positive stories to show for it these days. Indomie, I think they happen to be one of the sectors that were given the liberty to move around. They not only move around, they kept up the advertising for. Interestingly, that was also the period when they launched one of their sanitizing brands, which is Hypo. And you know what they equally did? They not only created demand for Hypo to let people know that in addition to using Hypo to clean your home, you can also use it to disinfect. They even took the risk of reducing their price. You created the market, but you refused to even cash in on it. They even took the pain by saying, let's reduce the price by 50%. Consumers will never forget that, because that means you've not only created the market, you created the demand for your product, but you equally slashed the price to say, look, I identify you guys at your point of pain. I'm not going to take advantage of you, because I'm not here for the short haul. We are here for the long run. And if we are ready for the long run, it's better for us to see how we support each other. And like I said earlier, the 1 naira I give you when you are broke is more valuable than the 1 million I give you when you're already rich.
Please, I can send you my account details.
So that pain point. So preaching to the consumer at that pain point, the message not only got them better, and the brand is doing so well now in the market. And interestingly, and I think for that brand, they did a whole lot. Interestingly, that period too was equally when we partnered with the station that we brought in because in addition to the consumer, in addition to the needs of the consumer, Indomie is only for food. But beyond food, after eating, what's next? During the pandemic, most people were seated at home.
Yes.
There was nothing like entertainment. You couldn't socialize and all of that. And we came up with the idea of Owambe with Indomie on Saturday.
Let me tell you, I was one of those who actually enjoyed it very, very much. It was at the right time, it served a need, and it showed that you were also responsive, as you said, to the needs of the audience. In addition
to meeting your food need, we need to feed you.
We want to entertain you.
Government has given us the liberty to move around when everybody is seated at home, because you cannot sit at home on empty stomach. You need to be fed. So we supply you. But then, what about your social need? What about entertainment? What about fun? And we created our one Saturday. And interestingly, the whole country in fact, they took it to the next level, where you have people dress up in their houses and dancing, and you bring live band. And it brings back memory of, wow, before pandemic, this is how we used to enjoy our Saturday.
And once the pandemic is over, this is what we're going back to.
The Nigerian consumers are too vibrant, they are too energetic to be kept aside. You must really be. And a brand that can survive, it must be active, must be alive. A dead brand cannot survive there. A docile brand cannot. You must be active and alive.
So let's talk about being active and alive. This is still active because some of the numbers are showing us that there is, of course, a dip. Now, some of Nigeria's corporations spent about 143.7 billion naira in 2020. According to Nairalytics, this is a 12.5% drop from the same period in 2019. But of course, that is to be expected. So now we're in a year that we're recovering from the pandemic. The dip was in 2020 because of the pandemic, except for those people who were exceptionally able to take advantage of the crisis situation. What are your projections for this year into the end of the 2021?
Well, I think, like I said, interestingly, not many clients, not many brands, not many companies actually survived the pandemic. Some went under, and they are most unlikely to come back alive. Yes. That's the honest truth. Some are still able to manage. But the good thing about it is that most of the clients and the brands are coming out of their shell now. They realize the fact that, look, the pandemic, we are most unlikely to have a day when the federal government will wake up, or the government will wake up and say, hey, COVID-19 is over, now take back to life. No, we just must learn how to live with it, taking unnecessary precautionary and safety measures, and life must just go on. And most people are now warming up to that reality. And I think as we go on in the year, we are likely to be a beehive of activities coming up strong, and even the consumers too. will probably be much more open to a couple of things. And we don't expect to go through that kind of experience and still expect to be the same. So meaning that online shopping, you probably will need to go out only when it's necessary and when it's essential. So brands now need to continue to evolve ways to keep on engaging people, to keep on making their product readily available, whether online or direct, and making it more accessible to each other. And life just must have to go on. But the good news is that the train has left the station finally. People are coming out of their shell, and it can only get better.
All right, Yinka, let's take a break here. So attention span is something that many have been expressing concerns about, as it is the 21st century. We are not paying attention for as long as we used to. But there's also something called the attention economy, how you marry attention with how you make money. When we come back on Business Edge, we'll get into the attention economy for brands and advertisers. Stay with us. This is Business Edge, and today we're looking at the new age of advertising. My guest is Yinka Adebayo. He is one of the directors at one of the country's, possibly the continent's, premier media advertising agency. So let's get into the future of advertising now. So even beyond recovering from the pandemic, there have been changes to the advertising landscape for a number of years because of online, because of social media. Consumer behavior has even changed. There's a lot more influence you can get. Sometimes influencers are influencing consumer behavior, and advertising has had to adjust to that. So beyond that, we've seen industry analysts and experts also complain that the attention span has reduced. How are you adjusting to that? How are brands, how are advertisers coping with the fact that you may get a consumer or the audience member's attention, but you're not likely to keep it for as long as you used to because there's so many other things competing for our attention?
Interesting. Well, it has always been like that, really. It's just that I think these days what we have now is that we have a couple of young, a lot more vibrant, a lot more radical, a lot more discerning consumers. You see, the young age right now is the fact that most of these young guys are they're full of energy and they're willing to express. And that's the reality on ground for us. And that's one thing we need to contend with. The entire span, the attention span has never been forever.
True.
You see, the truth of the matter is that for you to hold my attention, you need to give me what I want, when I want it, where I want it, how I want it, and even with the proof of delivery. And that's what the consumers are asking for. So when we've always said consumers are king, consumer is king, consumer is king, I think the reality is dawning on us right now.
Yeah.
And what that brings to the table is the fact that, yes, what's their attention? What are they looking for? They're looking for content. I had the opportunity of presenting an award during this year's Eddies, and I made it known that we've always said content is king, content is king. Yes, content is king, but that to me is just a lip surface. If content is king, how many have we crowned? And it's simple. The pandemic actually exposed our broadcast industry. We don't have content. The viewers that we are looking for, we are glued at home. Not many of the stations could live up to giving them the content they want. Yes, news was handy. That's given. News will always happen. And the pandemic, during the peak of the pandemic, it got to a situation where people were fed up with the news. Because most of the things we are being fed with are news of death.
It was depressing.
Rises. It was depressing. So they are looking for how they let. So it wasn't a surprise that when we came up with the idea of Owambe Show, it was almost like a relief. People were looking for how do I let go? How can I escape from this? And that was so meaning that content is really going to be. And when we fail to give them what they want, the consumers, you can't hold them back.
Yeah.
When we fail to give them what they were looking for, many of them migrated, and that was why you have this spike that happened on Netflix. Even those who are struggling to raise money, they needed to satisfy their urge for entertainment, for information, for something to listen, and they moved over to Netflix, meaning that content they are looking for, you couldn't. So meaning content is king. If content is king, how many have we crowned? We've not done enough, so we need to do a whole lot more in that sector. Yes, content is king. Who is the queen? The queen is engagement. So for you to hold the attention you are looking for, you give them the quality content, you need to also engage them. I think for a long time, we've taken the consumer, the viewers, for granted for so long. How many have we celebrated? It's only in Nigeria, and I dare say in a couple of other countries, that a station will open today, and you ask people to call in, and you have your phone call being bombarded with calls coming in, right?
Yeah.
If that be the case, and it's also in Nigeria that people calling, you are actually the one begging them to stop. They are spending their money, but you are saying you have only 1 minute, you've exceeded your time. But such viewers, such listeners, such callers, how well do we celebrate them? How many stations have been able to identify, Each time I open up my station, people to call in. There's one Yinka Adebayo in Alopada that calls in every day. How have you called him up to celebrate, to appreciate, to reward him? That's what they're asking for.
I think that's a challenge.
So if content is king,
engagement is queen.
The engagement is queen. So are we ready to engage? And that is what the brand now need to do. Yes, I'm watching your content. How are you engaging me? How are you interacting with me? And once you engage, then you can keep the attention span for life. The whole one bed show was only meant to be for 2 hours, but people were clamoring. Can you extend it? So meaning that attention, you can grab it with the right quantity, deliver in the right quality, and at the right time. And when they want it, you can be sure to hold that attention span. Keep them busy, keep them engaged, keep them rewarded, and you can be sure you have that attention. And that is the challenge for brand to put on their thinking cap and see how they come to the party with that engagement stuff.
And I think you really just answered my next question, which was then marrying that attention with making the money, with the attention economy. So that's it. Quality, quantity at the right time, the how, the when. King is content, queen is engagement. I'm afraid to ask, are there going to be any princes and princesses in this? But
certainly there'll be a fallout. It's natural. There'll be a fallout because when you have the king and the queen coming together, certainly the prince and princesses will come to the party too.
Definitely. All right. So we know right now, I think he's answered the question for how African brands can benefit from the attention economy. If they put these things into play, they can definitely see a spike in engagement and consumer activity. So I want to go back to the PwC report, which talked about online advertising. I think it's important we take note of that as more people are online now, and it's likely going to see an increase in numbers with younger generations. So the report highlighted that for Nigeria in particular, internet advertisements will outperform TV ad in terms of net additions by 2023. I'm curious, what's driving the performance of internet ads? What do you think is driving advertisement the most online?
Well, I think for me, really, I was opportune to be part of, I think we had a discussion during the social media week early in the year, and I think part of this we discussed was this growth of internet. For me, yeah, the euphoria is there. People are excited, the internet is growing. If anything, technology has opened up a whole lot of visa of opportunity. In fact, for us Nigerians, and if I know Nigeria very well, technology has been with us forever, but we've not really optimized the usage. Now, pandemic has challenged us, has forced many of us. Many more things have been done with the aid of technology today. So it's going to get a lot bigger, a lot better. But we need to be careful of one thing, and that's the fact that it's most unlikely to replace TV. Okay. And I'll say why. Why the internet world, the screen on the internet world is getting reduced by the day. You can imagine from your phone.
The screen is
getting smaller. But TV is getting wider, and that's where you have people still migrating to say you want to watch, take for instance, EPL, or you want to watch any football match, people are going to the big screen. That's why you have viewing center. So people will still, to see, to almost like, yeah, I'm seated at home, I'm watching. How do I have almost like the same experience that will I have when I go to the stadium? So those are critical things that people are still going to really be able to do TV, but the TV as a platform, they have their job equally cut out for them in terms of making sure that the content there is right. If the content is not right, certainly people will still defer to internet. And that is even why you find out that Super Bowl has been with us forever. You have it on both traditional media as well as the digital media. But I dare say that the highest price for the Super Bowl is more on TV.
It's more on TV.
And the delivery, you can't quantify. That's why they call it mass media.
And when you say the highest price, I think people need to understand how much 30-second ad at the Super Bowl is worth. We're talking in terms of double-digit dollar in millions advertising.
The same thing for EPL. EPL is available to people on digital. They call it, but I dare say, if you have opportunity of watching something on your phone versus and you have it on a large screen, I think the answer, you can express where you want to experience it the most. So giving the right content in the right quality and at the right time will go a long way in switching things. So it's going to still be there. And for me, really, it's an increasing platform, but it's a good thing that the internet has come in, giving us easy access. And that's even why for the news media too, we need to up our game. Yes, the internet can bring the news on the go, but the quality, and that's where investigative journalism comes into play here. To say, look, I can give you, and you can't compete with the internet in that space, in the digital space. Things can happen now, they spread it, they share it fast, but you can only share so little.
Yes.
But the background information are today, that's why our journalists need to up their antics by going to study the story behind the story. And that's what we clearly mark out the difference. Yeah, digital can break you the news, but the comprehensive detail
must come from. And I like the fact that you mentioned news on the go. On the screen is News Central on billboards now across Lagos with news in 60. So commuters across different access and different roads in Lagos will be able to catch the news on the go. We're trying to also be part of what we see as a new frontier for the media as well. So if you're in Lagos, we'd love to see you take a picture or send us a video, tag News Central, and let us know that you've also been watching us. Yinka, we have to wrap up, but I feel there's so much. But I think I want to end with the lessons, because beyond the pandemic, the industry, as we said earlier, has been changing. It will continue to change over the years as consumer trends and needs change. But there were lessons. One of the things I first took away was you said some people were prepared for a crisis. They were prepared to change, to sort of change how they addressed their business in that time. And others were afraid. So beyond the lesson of being adaptable in a crisis, what else can advertising, the industry, take away from the pandemic?
Yeah, I think the only constant thing in life is change.
It's change.
And that change is upon us. So we must be ready for many more changes as we go along. And for me, we just must be prepared, meaning that we must be alert, we must be sensitive, we need to continually research, we need to get close to the consumer to understand what they need, how they need it, where they need it, when they need it. And even with the proof of delivery, I want all of those added together. And we should bear in mind, if your presence is not felt, your absence will not be missed. So we've got to make it count every time and any time. And I feel like that advice is not only for advertisers, it's for anyone in any form of business, any brand, any medium that really wants to connect with its consumers. Exactly. I have to say a very big thank you, Yinka Adebayo, Executive Director, Media Investment for Media Reach, OMD. Thank you so much for joining me on Business Edge. Thank you so much for having me. Nice. All right, before we wrap up the show, let's give you a few stories we're keeping our eyes on, and that is, of course, with NC4 to watch. We start in South Africa, where Finance Minister Tito Mboweni says some state-owned entities could struggle to refinance their debts and may require the government to provide support. This is because there are no plans from the state to finance these firms directly from the country's treasury. A Safaricom-led consortium dubbed the Global Partnership for Ethiopia, which is comprised of its parent firms Vodafone and Vodacom, the British Development Finance Agency CDC Group, and Japan's Sumitomo Corporation, won one of the 2 telecom licenses that were on offer in Ethiopia. In a briefing with the media, the CEO mentioned that Safaricom has a stake of 55.7% in the consortium. He added that the U.S. government-owned International Development Finance Corporation has committed to supporting Safaricom in a form of debt. Now, Ghana has announced plans to raise as much as $1 billion through a sale of sustainable bonds, including Africa's first social debt, to fund a flagship policy to broaden access to education. According to the Minister of State at the Ministry for Finance, Audu Bohen, the proceeds would help refinance domestic debt used for social and environmental projects, including loans taken to pay for the government's free senior secondary school policy. And we wrap things up at home. Nigeria's stock market continues its losing streak as capitalization dropped further by 12 billion naira due to profit-taking on banking stocks. Similarly, the all-share index inched lower by 23.08 points, or 0.06%, to close at 38,233.68. Month-to-date and year-to-date losses increased to 4% and 5.1%, respectively. And that's today's edition of Business Edge. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can go to our website, download our mobile app on Play Store and the App Store as well. And of course, watch us live on StarTimes Channel 274 and Avo Channel 23. My name is Tolulope Adeleru-Balogun. I'll see you next time.